Are you guys able to see the screen GMAT Quant Webinar DS Traps? Great. Okay, so assuming that the screen is visible to all of you, let's start off. I'll repeat some of the hygiene factors again. I am not using the Q&A box in this webinar. I will request all of you to hold on to your questions till we arrive at the question and answer segment, which is going to happen immediately after the webinar. And write your questions down somewhere and post them in the chat box. All right. One more hygiene factor that I mentioned at the start, when some of you are not joined, is the hand raise function is not very useful. So I'll not be able to respond to all of you who are raising a hand. All right. So I will be using the chat box extensively. So if there's anything that you want me to know, post them in the chat box. All right, so I hope I'm clear on that. And one more hygiene factor is when I'm explaining a particular question, if you have any doubts or if you have any questions, hold on till I complete explanation of the question and then post the answers. So if you are all okay with what I said, please put in a few yeses and I'll understand that all of you have understood what I said. Great. Awesome. Okay, so let's get started then. I think one point I missed out is if any of you are facing a lag or if any of you are facing an issue in hearing me or in seeing the screen, like similar to what happened till now. If there's a lag of more than 10 seconds, ping me on the chat window. If you alone are facing the problem, then the problem is more likely to be from your end. If all of you are facing the problem, then it would be a situation similar to what happened a few minutes ago. So I hope that is clear. The agenda of this session, was actually to start off at about 7:35. Take up some good questions, have a meaningful discussion for about 75 minutes. And have a 15 to 20 minute question and answer session and close at about 9:15. Now I think this probably will get extended by another 15 minutes. So approximately I plan to wrap up this session by about 9:30 p.m. So that is the timeline. You'll have to you'll have to freeze your timeline till then and make sure that you're logged in till 9:30 on this webinar. All right. So that's the agenda for today. The first 75 minutes or so, the discussion, and the 15 minutes later will be the question and answer session. Okay. So one of the things that I could gather from the poll that I published at the start of the webinar was the fact that not a lot of you have taken up the GMAT. So if I just will have a look at the poll, which I think is not available on this computer for me, but I remember that close to 75% of you have not taken up the GMAT, and you're first time GMAT takers. So therefore, I think this webinar makes a lot of sense, for all of you, because this will give you an insight into what is the data sufficiency type of questions, how are the questions structured, what are the options that are available, and how to pick an option and how to eliminate options. So you'll get a valuable insight into all these aspects of questions in quant. Point number one. Another point I observed is many of you, not many, I think almost 90% of you felt that the data sufficiency questions were always more difficult than the problem solving questions. Now that's a huge majority of you saying that DS is like a is like a thorn in the flesh. I tend to agree, to that point of view, moderately, simply because I know that I know how to tackle a certain type of DS questions, and probably because all of you are still starting off with your preparation, um, the majority of you might be feeling that data sufficiency is more difficult. I still feel that it's a subjective answer, but that's besides the point. The point is most of you feel that DS is tough, and I think this webinar will end up addressing a lot of things which might end up changing your opinion about DS once you complete this webinar. A lot of voice breaks, Deveshri. If it is only from your end, then you might want to check your connections. I hope most of you are able to hear me quite clearly. I hope that most of you are able to hear me. Great. And the one of the last questions that I put in the poll is, I asked you guys, what do you think is the weightage of data sufficiency questions in the quant section of the GMAT? Quite a lot of you, almost 50% of you said it is between 40% to 50% of the total number of questions, and you're right on that. So the break, if you remember, there are 31 quant questions in the quant section of the GMAT. The 31 quant questions are not obviously broken up in a 50-50 ratio. The number of problem solving questions is slightly on the higher side. So 31 is usually broken up as 16 problem solving, 15 data sufficiency, or sometimes 17 problem solving, 14 data sufficiency. So that's the approximate breakup. So it's not exactly 50%, it's between 45% to 50% is the approximate weightage for DS. Having said that, in no way does it mean that because the weightage is less, that data sufficiency is can be taken for granted. I hope all of you acknowledge that fact. In fact, some of the hard questions that you can expect are usually from data sufficiency, and therefore, and because data sufficiency is a new type of question, a type of question that not many of you have encountered even in your schooling days, that poses an additional challenge. All right, so before we start off with the actual the topic on hand, this is something about us. We at Crack Verbal started off in 2006. It's almost been 13 years of helping out students across the entire spectrum of your GMAT and GRE preparation. We help you out right from preparing for the exam till you get an admit into a college that you want to get into. We have coached about 5,000 and more students. It's a fact that a lot of our students not only come from India but from a lot of other countries. So that's what we do. And we have some free resources to get you started off. One is you can access some part of our online course, which we call as the GMAT online course, through this URL. We're also offering you some free ebooks. These are really valuable material for you to go through. Especially we have handbooks on certain quant topics and certain verbal topics. Along with that, we also have some strategy videos that you can access on YouTube. So this is the URL that you have to access. You can just go onto YouTube and type Crack Verbal videos, and you'll be directed to the videos that I'm talking of. So these are some free resources that you can access without even having to enroll for a course at Crack Verbal. All right. Okay, so it's definitely time to start. So to start off, as I said, I wanted to start off with assuming that some of you might not be familiar with the data sufficiency model of questions, I thought let me start off with a slide on what exactly is data sufficiency. So as the name itself implies, if you break down the terminology data sufficiency, data obviously means information given to you in some form. And sufficiency points out to whether the data given to you is enough or not enough to answer the question asked. Now, when you're talking of an answer, we are looking at a unique or a definite or a single answer. So essentially, the objective that is being satisfied here is we are trying to find out whether whatever data is given to us in any form is enough to find out a unique answer to the question asked. So that is essentially what DS is. And if you track the history of DS, data sufficiency goes back in time almost to the same stage where GMAT actually started. So data sufficiency is unique to the GMAT. It's as unique to the GMAT as nothing else is, and that is what makes it the kind of it's a specialty component of GMAT. And that is the reason why you end up finding a lot of really good, really hard questions coming from DS. And you can say that is one of the USPs of the GMAT as well. So coming back to the point in discussion, so data sufficiency question looks exactly like how you see it on the screen. So you'll have a question statement, which can be broadly divided into two parts. One part giving you some data, which we call as the question data, and the second part, which we call as the question stub. So the question stub actually contains the question that you have to answer. Followed by this are two statements given to you, which are usually designated as statement 1 and statement 2. Now, the whole objective for you is to figure out whether you can answer the question asked, in a definite way, in a unique way, using the data given in the statements and using the data given in the question. How you do this, we'll get to this in a while. But if you look at the simple question, here the question is asking me what is the value of y by x, which means that if I want to find out the value of y by x, I need the value of y, I need the value of x. Also, if you look at this part where they say x is not equal to 0, why do you think x is not equal to 0 is given as a data? That is because in some parts of the question, x is coming in the denominator. So because x is coming in the denominator, it becomes essential for me to tell you that x cannot be equal to 0. Now, this is the kind of analysis that you should start doing on every data sufficiency question. So let us get to the statements now. Statement 1 tells me that y is equal to 5, but it does not tell me anything about x. So I cannot answer this question using statement 1 alone. Now, I'll try answering this question using statement 2 alone. I know that y square by x is equal to 20, but that does not tell me anything about y by x. So statement 2 alone is also insufficient. Now, because statement 1 alone and statement 2 alone were insufficient, now I have to combine both the statements and see what I'll get. So from the first statement, I know that y equal to 5. If I now use this value of y in the second statement, I will be able to find the value of x. And therefore, I can now conclusively say that I will be able to find the value of y by x in a definite manner. So this is what exactly you have to do in a data sufficiency question. How do the options look in a data sufficiency question? There are usually 5 options in a DS question, and these are standard. So these will never change, and therefore, if you are familiar with the options, it's like half the job done. So first thing you have to do when you're practicing DS questions is to get really familiar with the options. So what does option 1 say? Option A says statement 1 alone is sufficient, but at the same time, statement 2 alone is insufficient to answer the question asked in a definite way. Option B says the opposite of option A. So it says statement 2 alone is sufficient. At the same time, statement 1 alone is insufficient. Option C says you have to combine both the statements 1 and 2 together if you want to get an answer, but neither of the statements alone will not give you an answer when you use them alone. Statement D says each statement alone is sufficient. Statement E says even after combining the two statements, the data is insufficient. Are these options clear? Any difficulty in understanding the options? Okay, fair enough. All right. And because the options are structured in this way, there's a particular strategy that any person solving a DS question can adopt. And the strategy is this. So we have created a flowchart which will tell you exactly what is the route you have to follow if you want to get to the final answer. And this also in certain ways defines certain basic ground rules of DS. One of the ground rules of DS is you have to evaluate the statements individually before you combine. You cannot just look at the two statements and say, okay, I'll combine now and find the answer. You have to evaluate statement 1 first. And once you evaluate statement 1, if you understand that statement 1 is sufficient, you will say that the answer can be A or D, because if you go back one slide, if your statement 1 alone is sufficient, your answer can be A or your answer can be D. It cannot be the other three. Now, if you go this route, if the second statement is insufficient, then it means that the first statement was sufficient, but the second statement was not. Therefore, the answer will be A. On the other hand, if the second statement also becomes sufficient, then it means that each statement alone is sufficient, and therefore the answer will be D, D for delta. On the other hand, when you evaluate statement 1, if it turns out to be insufficient, then it means that A and D cannot be the answer. The answers can be B, C, or E. Then we go on to evaluate statement 2. If statement 2 alone is insufficient, then the answer will be B. If this is insufficient, then we go on to C or E. Then we combine. So the combination of statements has to happen after evaluating the individual statements and not before that. And therefore, this qualifies as the most common trap that a student can fall into, because you can have a lot of questions where you say, okay, the individual statements look like they are insufficient, so let me go and combine. So looks like is probably a very common trap that you can get into, because looks like doesn't data sufficiency. So one ground rule is always try to evaluate statement 1 alone and evaluate statement 2 alone, and only after you find that they are insufficient when taken alone, please go ahead and combine. Now, when it comes to the types of questions, there are two types of question stubs. The first one is on your screen, which is finding the value kind of question stub. So here, you are required to find a unique value as the answer. So if you look at the question in discussion, the question says if x and y are real numbers and 2x plus y equal to 11, what is the value of y? So we need to find a unique value of y from the equation given and of course from the statements shown to us. So if I use the statement 1 and substitute in the equation, 2 into 2 becomes 4, and therefore y becomes 11 minus 4, that is 7. Which means that I can solve the question and say the value of y is 7 uniquely using the data given in statement 1. Therefore, the answer here will be A or D. Now, when I look at statement 2, x square equal to 4, what does this mean? What is the value of x according to x square equal to 4? Please post your answers in the chat box. Okay. All right. So I got a few 2's, but I ended up getting most of them saying plus or minus 2, right? The reason why it is plus or minus 2 is because it's a quadratic equation. It's a 2-degree equation in x, and therefore it has to have two solutions, right? And therefore the value of x cannot be positive 2 alone, it can be a negative 2 as well, because plus 2 square is 4, minus 2 the whole square is also 4. Now, because there are two values of x, it's obvious that I'll end up having two values of y as well. Therefore, the second statement alone is insufficient for me to find a unique value of y, whereas the first statement alone is sufficient for me to find a unique value of y. So the answer for this question will end up being A. The second type of question stub is evaluating a question which has a yes or a no as an answer. So it's like asking you, is 2 an odd number? So if I ask you, is 2 an odd number? Your answer will obviously be a no. If I ask you, is 3 an odd number? Your answer will be a yes. So yes or a no are two definite answers. On the other hand, if I ask you, is x an odd number? You'll end up telling me it might be an odd number sometimes, it might be an even number sometimes. So getting a yes and a no is not a unique answer. So here you have to realize that getting a yes and getting a no are both possible definite answers. So here if you look at the question, it's pretty clear from the first statement is 4 and the first statement is definitely sufficient. But if you look at the second statement, we get the same two values of y x here, that is x equal to plus 2 and minus 2. When we substitute x equal to 2, we get y equal to 4. But when we substitute x equal to minus 2, we end up getting y equal to 15. Now, you have to ask yourself, I got two values of y. One value of y is 4, the other value of y is 15. Regardless of it being 4 or 15, are these values more than 2? If your answer to both the questions is yes, then it means that you got a unique answer to the question. So is 4 more than 2? The answer is a yes. Is 15 more than 2? The answer is a yes. So regardless of what the value of y is, you can conclude that the value of y will always be more than 2. Therefore, statement 2 also ends up answering your question here conclusively. Therefore, the answer to this question is D for delta, which is each statement alone is sufficient to answer the question. So just a small difference in some mathematical operators can entirely change the complexion of a question, which is what is special about data sufficiency. So these are the two types of question stubs. I hope all of you are clear with the two types of question stubs. If any of you have a doubt or a query at this stage, I can probably take one or two questions at this stage, but it'll break the flow of the session. So I'd prefer going on to the actual questions that I have prepared for today's webinar. Are you all okay with it? Yeah? All right. Great. Okay. So without delaying further, let's get to this question. This is a question. This is the first question that I have for you today. I'll give you 2 minutes of time and time all of you for 2 minutes. Please utilize the 2 minutes in an optimal way and give me an answer. That'll probably give me time also to to work on the pen function of the PPT. Okay, that's 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So that's 2 minutes. You can please type in your answers for this question. The answers available are A, B, C, D, E. By now, I hope all of you are comfortable with the answer options. Option E. Okay, that seems to be a fairly popular answer till now. D also. Okay, interesting. E. Okay, E and D seem to be vying for each other with for majority. All right. So I'm presuming that some of you did this, that x plus y the whole cube is an even integer. So therefore, x can be 2 and y can be 3, or rather y can be 4, correct? So 2 plus 4 the whole cube, which is 6 cube. 6 cube will definitely be even. So because x is equal to 2 and y equal to 4, 3 into 2 plus 7 into 4 is definitely an integer. So the answer to this question, to the main question, will be a yes using the data given. X minus y, the whole cube, is even. Here also I think I can take x is equal to 4, y equal to 2 for convenience purpose. So I can say 4 minus 2 whole cube is 2 cube. 2 cube is definitely even. Now let us look at my main question. 3 4s are 12 plus 7 2s are 14 is definitely an integer. So I'm getting a yes when I'm using the second statement alone as well, right? And all of you who followed this method marked a D as an answer. But think about this. Can x be 3 by 2 and y be 1 by 2? How many yeses for this question? Can x be 3 by 2 and y be 1 by 2? So x can be 3 by 2 and y can be 1 by 2, right? So if I take x equal to 3 by 2, y equal to 1 by 2, I'll end up saying x plus y equal to 2. And x plus y equal to 2 means x plus y the whole cube will definitely be an even integer. But if you use the same value of x and y in the main question, that is 3 into 3 by 2 plus 7 into 1 by 2 will not give you an integer. So all of you who marked D missed this point. All of you who marked D assumed certain types of values. When I say certain types of values, all of you assumed integers. Now, that is the first don't that we have for you. The first don't is Do not assume only integer or whole number values in every question of DS. You have to try a range of values. Now, if you look at the question, it said x plus y, the whole cube is an even integer. Remember that even and odd are defined only for integers and not for fractions. So whether I say even integer or even, they both mean the same. The only conclusion that you can draw from this is x plus y equal to even. That is the only conclusion that you can draw from this statement. And therefore, you don't have a unique value of x, you don't have a unique value of y, you don't know what the nature of x and y is. And hence, you can never answer the question 3x plus 7y uniquely. As you saw, in some cases 3x plus 7y will be an integer, in some other cases 3x plus 7y will be a fraction. So statement 1 alone is insufficient. Similarly, x minus y the whole cube is even means one and only one thing, that is x minus y is even. It doesn't mean anything else, nothing more, nothing less. Therefore, this statement also goes down the same road. In some cases, my 3x plus 7y will be an integer. In some cases, it will be a fraction. Whenever it's an integer, I'll get a yes. Whenever it's a fraction, I'll get a no. And as I told you, a yes and a no situation is not called for. So how do we look at this? Because we understand now that the individual statements are insufficient, we can say x plus y equal to even and x minus y equal to even need to be combined with each other. Now is the stage when you combine both the statements, right? So by now, you should have understood that out of the 5 options A, B, C, D, E, because the first statement alone was insufficient, you can rule out A and also D. And because the second statement alone was insufficient, you can rule out B. This way, you have reduced 60% of your workload by cancelling 3 options out of 5. Now the only thing left for you is to figure out if combining the statements will give an answer or not. If it does, then the answer will be C. If it doesn't, then the answer will be E. When you combine both the statements, you have to use a mathematical operation between the two, or you have to try and see how you can fit one in the other. Here, the easiest mathematical operation I can do is I can add both the equations. X plus x will give me 2x, y minus y will cancel out, even plus even will give me even again. Now, what is the meaning of saying 2x equal to even? Please type in the chat box. What is the meaning of saying 2x is equal to even? Exactly. Good answer, Naveen. Good answer, Madhu. 2x equal to even means x is an integer. It means x cannot be a fraction. Always remember this. Similarly, working on the equation, so if I say x plus y equal to even, x minus y equal to even, if I subtract the two equations, x minus x, y minus of minus y will become 2y. 2y equal to even minus even is even. So here also we can say y is an integer. The moment you combine both the statements, you could say that x is an integer and y is an integer. If x and y both are integers, then there is no question about 3x plus 7y not being an integer. 3x plus 7y will definitely be an integer. And because we were able to say 3x plus 7y will be an integer conclusively after combining both the statements, the answer for this will be option C for Charlie. I hope this is clear to all of you. So the first trap that you can get into, it is probably the most common trap that you can get into, the easiest trap that you can get into, and that is to assume integral values or whole number values, especially when there's a question on numbers, especially when there's a question on adding numbers or multiplying numbers. All right. So do not do that. Always remember to try different values. Try whole numbers. Try a zero. Try negative numbers. Try fractions. Try extreme values. Try the entire number, the entire set of values that you can probably try on the number line, and then come to a conclusion. All right. And as I said at the start, if I give you 2 minutes, always make optimal use of it. If you are able to complete the question within 1 minute, you have 1 more minute to review your answer and see if you have done a mistake somewhere. All right. Good to go to the next question. So let's go to the next question then. All right. So this is the next question that I have for you. As usual, I'll time all of you for 2 minutes. Time starting now. One minute more. Unfortunately, most of the answers that a lot of you have given is wrong. E is probably the farthest away from the answer that I'm expecting. Okay, so time up. So since some of you are expressing, difficulty in understanding the options, let me run through the options again quickly in a minute. So these are the options, guys. For all of you who are having a difficulty in understanding the options, I'll leave this on the screen for 30 seconds. Have a look at the options. Let me know if you have any difficulty. I'll run through the options again. So option A is statement 1 alone is sufficient, but is a conjunction. So at the same time, when statement 1 alone is sufficient, at the same time statement 2 alone should be insufficient. All right. So that's when you mark answer A. Answer option B is statement 2 alone sufficient, at the same time statement 1 alone insufficient. So you have to check for statement 1 alone and 2 alone before going on to option C, D, and E, right? Now, if statement 1 alone is sufficient, statement 2 alone also is sufficient, then the answer will be option D, because it means each statement alone is sufficient. And if the individual statements alone are insufficient, then the answers will be C or E. C is you combine both the statements together. E is despite combining them, you will not get an answer. Are we clear now? Are the options clear? Okay. Okay, so I see a lot of A's, I see a lot of D's, I C's, but I saw only one B or one or a couple of B's. So let me get to the statement, the question, actual question now. Yeah, so this is the actual question. So if you observe here again, there is this piece of data saying x is not equal to 0. This clearly points out to the fact that x will come in the denominator. That is the objective of telling you this x is not equal to 0. So by saying x is not equal to 0, the question is actually giving you a clue that the x will come in the denominator. Now, if you look at x power minus y, basic rules of exponent says that x power minus y can be written as 1 by x power y. So, what is my question asking? My question is asking whether x power minus y is more than 0. Which means my question is asking me 1 by x power y, is it more than 0 or not? Now, if this has to be more than 0, it depends on the base and not on the exponent, because as you just observed, if there's a negative exponent, the only thing that happens is you shift it from the numerator to the denominator, or you shift it from the denominator to the numerator. So it's pretty clear that if you want to know an answer to this, this is the question asked. The question asked is 1 by x power y positive? This is essentially the question asked, in a different way. So if you want to know an answer to this, you should understand that it depends on the value of x by now. And the value of x is given in statement 2. So obviously statement 1 is insufficient. If you are not sure, you can take values for y. Let's say y equal to minus 1, which is y less than 0. Now let us take x is equal to 2. 2 power minus 1. 2 power minus 1 is half. Half is more than 0? Yes. Take x is equal to minus 2. Minus 2 to the power of minus 1 is nothing but 1 by minus 2. 1 by minus 2 is nothing but minus 1 by 2. Minus 1 by 2 more than 0? The answer is a no. So using this data, we are getting a yes, we are getting a no, which means that this statement is insufficient. If the first statement is insufficient, out of A, B, C, D, E, you can rule out A, you can rule out to D. Coming to the second statement, x less than 0. We already know what happens when x is less than 0. Therefore, you can clearly say that the second statement is sufficient when taken alone, regardless of the value of y. If you want to be triply sure, you can take the value of y as a positive value, let's say 2. You can take the value of x as minus 2. We all know that minus 2 whole square is 4. Is 4 more than 0? The answer to this question will always be a yes. So the answer for this question is a B. So here, what you have to understand is when we have a question like this, we always think that no is not a definite answer. No can also be an expected answer. My question was this: is x power minus y more than 0? Right? Correct? Yes. Good point, Naveen. Good point, Shashwat. See, I just finished one slide on not using integers alone, and still, the mindset will continue. So what I did in the previous slide was just to tell you that it's very hard to get rid of that habit of using integers alone. You're right. So if I take x is equal to -2, I take y equal to 2 minus 2 whole square will be 4, which is definitely more than 0. On the other hand, if I take x equal to -2, y equal to half, that's a good point. So I'm taking this point. X equal to -2, y equal to half, we'll have -2 to the power of half, that is the square root of -2, which is not defined in GMAT. If I take x equal to -2 and y equal to -2, so -2 to the power of -2 will be 1 by -2 to the power of 2, which is 1 by 4, which is again more than 0. So I think I'll still hold on to my answer and say option, statement B is sufficient regardless of the value of y. Regardless of the value of y being positive, negative, integer, whole number. Am I right on that? Correct. 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 Shubhra, Madhu, you're all right. So it fails when there is a odd value for y. So if I say x equal to -2 and y equal to -3, then it becomes -2 to the power of -3, which will be 1 by -8, which is less than 0. So here again, when we use statement 2 alone, we are not sure because we don't know the value of y, and therefore, what is the answer to this question, guys? Finally, after all this discussion, what is the final answer that you have for me? Yes, you're right. You're right. So the answer to this question is not B. That was just a trap answer. Actual answer to this question is option E, because we don't know whether y is odd or even. We don't know whether y is a fraction or not. But the whole point of including this question for you guys was to tell you that please do not think that no is not a definite answer. A no is also a definite answer, and a no is an answer in such questions. Okay, so it becomes a trap for you sometimes that you keep on looking for this yes as an answer, not figuring out that no also can be a unique answer. All right, so always understand that no also can be an expected answer. Okay, so we'll move on to the next question then, quickly. 2 minutes. A minute more. Okay, so this time I'll not give out the answer till we are able to solve this fully. Okay, a lot of C's and E's that I could see. So let's see what the answer is. So I have X women and Y men. From X women, I have to select 3, and from Y men, I have to select 2 and form a committee of 5 people. Right? Now, how many different committees can be formed? If I want to know how many different committees can be formed, I need the value of X and I need the value of Y. Right? Now, if you look at this, first statement alone talks about the women, right? So it says if 2 more women were available for selection, we know that there are X women available for selection. If 2 more were available, which means if X plus 2 were available, there could be exactly 56 different groups of 3 women. So X plus 2 C3. So from X plus 2 women, if I select any 3, there could be 56 such groups, right? Now, let me remind you of the formula for NCR. NCR is given by n factorial by n minus r factorial into r factorial. So if I try to expand this here, x plus 2 C3 will be equal to x plus 2 factorial divided by x plus 2 minus 3. X plus 2 minus 3 is x minus 1. Into 3 factorial, right? So this is the expansion of the left hand side. So let me put it here. X plus 2 factorial is nothing but x plus 2 into x plus 1 into x minus 1 factorial. Why have I stopped at x minus 1 factorial? Because I know that in the denominator I have a x minus 1 factorial. Then I have a 3 into 2 into 1, that is equal to 56. I can cancel off this x minus 1 factorial with this. So here now x plus 2 into x plus 1 into x is equal to 56 into 6. So what is the value of x? What is the value of x? 6? Exactly. Exactly the point I wanted to make. I wanted to know how many of you found out the value of x, because that is the point I wanted to make. A lot of us will go for the exact answer instead of proving the data sufficient to find an answer. The point here is, after doing all this, also I know that I can only find out x. Can I find out y? No. Right? So if I go for the exact answer, the only thing that I'll end up doing is I'll end up wasting a lot of time on something that I shouldn't have. Right? X is 6 is right, but how valuable is it for you in terms of an answer? It is not. Right? So never go for the exact answer in a lot of questions. So here, first statement alone, when you look at it, you should understand that, okay, from this, I will be able to find the value of x. What about y? That's not given, correct? Now, look at the second statement. What is the value of y? Y equal to x minus 1. So what is the value of y? Therefore, you can type your answers in the chat box. What is the value of y? Yes, Vartika. Yes, Simran, Shashwat. Right? That's another trap that I've set for you, wherein you forgot that when you're trying to analyze the statement 2 alone, you're not supposed to use data from statement 1 alone. That's why it's called statement 2 alone. So in statement 2 alone, you just know that y equal to x minus 1, y equal to x minus 1, that's it. You don't know the value of x. Value of x equal to 6 is from statement 1 alone. You cannot use this when you're trying to analyze 2 alone. So this is something that happens at a subconscious level, especially when you're starting off with DS. You'll end up using data in some place where you're not supposed to. So that's another trap that you should not fall into. Using data given in statement 1 with statement 2 before combining the statements. Right? So before combining the statements, you are not supposed to mix up the data in any way. Right? So if you look at this, statement 1 alone is insufficient because it gives us only a value of x. Statement 2 alone is insufficient because it just gives us a relationship between x and y. It's only when we combine both of the statements that we know that from statement 1, x equal to 6, and because of this, y equal to 5. Right? Now that we know that 6 and 5 are available, should I worry about how many different committees can be formed? I should not, because I know that if these values are unique, this value will also be unique. So do not go for the exact answer in a DS question unless until really necessary. And do not use statement 1 data along with statement 2 data, or don't do the vice versa also. Vice versa also happens sometimes. Okay, this can be done only when you combine the statements. So till you combine, you're not supposed to mix up the data, right? Karthik, I'll address your question on cubic equation in the question and answer session. So I understand where you're coming from. You're looking for x, right? You have to understand that x and y have to be integers because they represent people, right? So your question about cubic equation having so there is only going to be one value for x that will satisfy the particular equation given, right? So I'll address that particular question in the question answer session. Let's move on to the next slide now. So hold on to that question. We'll address that in the later stage. So this is the next question for you guys. Two minutes. Guys, as I told you, please try to make use of the 2 minutes and review your answers before actually saying for sure that it is whatever it is. I'm not commenting whether answers are right or wrong, but please try to make use of the time given. Falling short on time or being ahead of time, both are going to be dangerous on the GMAT. Vartika, if 0 was a positive integer, where would the number line start from? Where would positive start from? That's a question you have to ask yourself, right? So 0 has to be a neutral integer. It's neither positive nor negative. And that's the reason why that is the neutral point. Okay, that's time up. So popular answer to this question seems to be C. Okay, let's see. So if x and y are positive integers, that's a condition that should work in your favor. Now, the trap that I've laid for you here is the fact that something called the C trap. We call it the C trap because we know that when a lot of you look at two simultaneous equations which look nice, you'll end up saying, okay, my first statement has two variables, one equation, I'll not be able to find the value of x and y. Second statement, again the same problem, so I will have to combine. Now, that's exactly the trap that we want all of you to get into, wherein you've forgotten the basic ground rule of DS. The basic ground rule of DS says that you have to test the individual statements before combining, which a lot of you have not done. 4x minus 3y equal to 6. If this equation was given to you and this condition was not given to you, if this condition that I've highlighted is not given, then all of you saying that this equation cannot be solved are right, because there are infinite possible solutions. But here this condition is given to us, x and y are positive integers. So if I take x is equal to 3 and y is equal to 2, 4 3s are 12, 3 2s are 6, 12 minus 6 is equal to 6. If I take x is equal to 6, y equal to 6, 4 6 are 24, 3 6 are 18, 24 minus 18 equal to 6. What is the value of x? We don't have a unique value. So first statement alone is insufficient. So out of A, B, C, D, E, your A goes out of the window, D goes out of the window. 3x plus 5y equal to 22. Again, x and y are positive integers. So if I take x is equal to 4, y will be equal to 2. 3 4s are 12, 5 2s are 10, 12 plus 10 is equal to 22. Now you have to understand here that if I increase the value of x, the value of y will automatically go down, because if this increases, this has to become smaller so that this is maintained. The 22 is maintained constant. So if I take the value of x as, let's say, a 9, that is incidentally the next value that I can take for x. The value of y will be minus 1. 3 9s are 27, minus 5 equal to 22. Now we understand that any value of x I take beyond this point will give me a negative value for y. Therefore, the only combination that satisfies all the conditions is x equal to 4, y equal to 2, which means the second statement is actually sufficient to answer the question uniquely. So the answer for this question is B. And please remember, on the GMAT, the C trap is probably one of the most common traps that you can encounter. You'll go by the look like feeling again. You'll say, okay, the equations look like they have to be combined, but the look like feeling doesn't work, unfortunately, in all the cases. So test out the individual statements before combining, and make sure that you test out the individual statements taking a plethora of values. Don't just stick to integers or fractions. All right, so let's go on to the next statement now. Next question. 2 minutes. This question comes with a caveat that this is slightly a hard question. So 2 minutes is called for, at least for this question. E. All right, time up. Quite a few of you might be saying, sir, that's unfair. This is a question on, this is a DS question on inequalities. So it's a little unfair that we only had 2 minutes. Well, yeah, that's how it is. And I'm presuming that a lot of you would have plugged in values into the inequalities and tried to solve it. So plugging in was a common strategy that a lot of you used. You can answer with a yes. Okay, so it seems like plugging in was a very common strategy. Now, plugging in, guys, works with equations, but when it comes to inequalities, it just topples on its head. And especially with inequalities like these, you're in for big trouble if you start plugging in values. You'll end up taking 5 minutes, 6 minutes on one problem, which you ought to finish within 2 minutes or maximum 3 minutes. So that is where you have to make use of certain basic properties of inequalities. Now there is a certain basic property of inequality which says, if the inequality signs are same in two inequalities, you can add them. Right? So addition is the simplest process that you can do on two inequalities if both the inequalities have the same sign. So both have to be either more than or both have to be less than. Now, it's obvious here that the individual statements are insufficient. Am I right on that? So for example, I can take x is equal to 10 and y is equal to 5. 10 minus 5 is equal to 5. 5 is definitely more than minus 2, which is what the first statement is telling. X into y here will be 50. So the main question can be answered with a yes. If I take x is equal to, let's say, a minus 3 and y is equal to, let's say, so if I take on the other, I can probably take a smaller value for x. So I can take maybe a minus, okay, I'll keep it minus 3. I'll take y as, let's wait. I can take x as minus 2 and I can take y as 0. So that's a trap that I would like to highlight. So x equal to minus 1 will also work. Minus 1 minus 0 is definitely more than minus 2, satisfied. But minus 1 into 0 is not more than 0. So here, when we take minus 1 and 0, we get a no as an answer to this main question. So first statement alone is insufficient. You'll find that similarly, the second statement alone will also be insufficient if you try more than one values. So what should you do here? The approach is, if I multiply the second inequality, so here obviously option A, option D and option B can be ruled out because the individual statements are insufficient. Now I'm trying to combine. So if I multiply the second inequality with a negative symbol, with a minus, it becomes minus x plus 2y. Because I multiplied both sides with a negative symbol, it becomes minus 6, more than minus 6. Because the two signs are the same, you can add these two inequalities now, just like how you add equations. X and minus x will get cancelled out. Minus y plus 2y will give you y. Minus 2 minus 6. Oh, this is plus 6, I'm sorry. This is plus 6. So minus 2 plus 6 will be 4. So you now know the value of y is more than 4. Now if I substitute this in x minus y more than minus 2, I can take this y onto the right side, x more than y minus 2. Now I know that the value of y is more than 4. Because the value of y is more than 4, I can say x is more than 2. Now because the value of x is more than 2 and the value of y is more than 4, I can say that the value of xy will definitely be more than 0. So a trap that you can get into, especially in inequalities, is when you don't combine the statements based on concepts, but you try to combine the statements using values. So please use basic concepts to connect the statements to each other rather than just plugging in values. If you are going the plugging in value way, a recommendation would be whatever values you tried for statement 1, keep them handy, because when you combine statements, you can use the same values and see whether they satisfy statement 2 as well. That way, you'll be wasting less time. But the advice would always be to stick to basic concepts, to connect the statements rather than plugging in values alone. Okay, so let's go to the next question quickly. This is again a problem on inequalities. Thirty seconds more. B. Okay, so that's time up. So what is the trap here? Here again, a similar trap is you guys get into plugging in, especially because it's problem on inequalities. Um, Again, here you cannot use the concept that we used in the previous problem, but this is a question that I would like to take up to tell you guys that in areas like inequalities, coordinate geometry, algebra, you have to analyze the question statement more and more as much as possible, which is what we call as deconstructing the question. You have to break down the question into smaller chunks that you can understand, and also you have to make sense of some pieces of data that are given to you. Now, why do you think this is given to you? Why do you think r into r plus s is not equal to 0 is given to you? It is invariably telling you that at some stage in your solution, you will have r into r plus s in your denominator. Now, if you miss that fact, you would have missed one very vital link in the chain of thoughts that you have to construct. Also, don't miss out the vital clues given, r more than 0. So we already know that r is positive. So this is the deconstruction part. This is where you have to deconstruct the expression given. So I have 1 by r plus s less than 1 by r plus s. This is what I'm trying to find out. right? Therefore, essentially what I'm trying to find out is whether 1 by r plus s minus 1 by r minus s is less than 0. This is what I'm trying to find out. And this is exactly what I mean by saying you have to deconstruct the question or the expression given in the question. And always try to keep the right hand side of the inequality as 0. Always try to keep the left hand side of the inequality as a product or a quotient. Now, if you look at the denominator, the LCM of the denominator is r into r plus s. Let it further down. LCM is r into r plus s. So here I will have r. Here I will have minus of r plus s minus s multiplied by r into r plus s less than 0. This is what I am trying to find out. Let us simplify the numerator. R minus r will get cancelled. In the numerator, I'll have minus s r plus s divided by r into r plus s. Is this less than 0? Is what I'm trying to find out. Simplifying one step further, I have minus s common in the numerator. So I'll have minus s common 1 plus r into r plus s divided by r into r plus s less than 0 or not is what I'm trying to find out. Now, you must have observed that I have not even come to the stage of using the first statement. All the while, what I've done is I've tried to deconstruct this or break this down into a form which I can analyze more easily now. Right? Now, coming to the first statement alone says that r plus s is positive, which means I know that this is already positive from the question. This is positive from the first statement alone. So the denominator is positive. This part is also positive, right? So this bracket will also become positive because 1 plus positive is positive. However, my s is still unknown. If my s turns out to be a positive number, this entire numerator will become negative. Negative divided by positive is less than 0. On the other hand, if my s becomes a negative number, negative into negative is positive, right? Positive by positive is not less than 0, which means this data is insufficient for me to find out whether this is happening or not, right? Whereas by now, I have understood that I want the value of s. So if I look at the value of s is more than 0, which means s is positive. If s is positive, automatically I am being told that r plus s is positive because r is positive, s is positive, positive plus positive is positive. So this entire thing, the denominator again becomes positive. This bracket also becomes positive. Negative into positive is negative, right? So now I can conclusively say I have an expression of the form negative divided by positive, which will definitely be less than 0. So it is this piece of information that helped me find out this part. Therefore, the second statement alone is insufficient. Is sufficient. I'm sorry on that. Is sufficient, and therefore the answer for this question is B and not C. So there is a certain C trap here also. Anji, I just showed you that the second statement is sufficient, right? So if you know that S is positive, R plus S becomes positive and then the numerator becomes negative. I hope you are clear on that. Yes, Anji? Great. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. So the strategy here is, please analyze the question stem, especially in inequalities and coordinate geometry. Don't shy away from it. Spend as much time as possible on deconstructing the question. Don't get into plugging in. Plugging in has to happen at the last stage after you've analyzed all the parts of the question. All right. So this is the last question of the strategy part. 2 minutes. Okay, so geometry seems to be the favorite topic for quite a few of you. All right, time up, guys. So here, I will not tell you, I'll not give you the explanation. I'll just show you what is the trap that I've laid for you. And I think beyond that, everything else will be self-explanatory. I'll just go to the next point. All of you who got a D trusted the figure given to you. This is a specific aspect about geometry DS questions. So whenever you have a geometry DS question, if you have to get a unique answer, you have to have a unique diagram. And if you want a unique diagram, you cannot trust the figure given in the problem because the figure need not be drawn to scale. Just because X and Y look like the centers, it is not necessary that they are exactly the centers. Why do you think the X and Y cannot be 0.1 centimeter away from the center? Isn't that a distinct possibility? Right? So X and Y can be 0.01 centimeter away from the center. And still they will not be the centers, right? So all of you who gave D as the answer fell into the trap of assuming that X and Y are centers of the semicircles. All right. And obviously, second statement is self-explanatory. It says that every point on arc PQ is 5 centimeters from point X, which obviously means X is the center of the circle, right? Similarly, Y is the center of the other circle. Once you know the center and you know that the radius is 5, you can find the sum of the lengths of the curved paths, correct? So here also, don't go for the exact answer again. As you saw, I did not go for the exact answer. I said I can find the sum of the lengths based on what is given in statement 2. And that's the end. That is where you should stop and say, okay, the answer is, what is the answer for this? The answer for this is B, because the first statement alone is insufficient, the second statement alone is sufficient. I hope I'm clear on this. Right? Okay. So in geometry questions, please do not trust the figure. And please, an angle looking like a right angle need not be a right angle. Remember that the angle can be 90.5 degrees or it can be 89.5 degrees. A triangle looking like a right angle triangle need not be a right angle triangle, right? So do not assume anything about the figure in geometry DS questions. All right, so that concludes my part about giving you strategies. We've covered a number of strategies here. One is taking certain types of values, assuming that no is not an answer, uh, unconsciously or subconsciously trying to combine the statements before actually combining it, going for the final answer, looking at a pair of equations and saying, okay, there are two equations I need to combine without testing them out, looking at two inequalities and not combining them using concepts, but trying to plug in values. Again, not analyzing the question stem, but plugging in values. And finally, trusting the figure on DS. So these are some of the common, traps that we have seen students fall into. And that is the reason why we put these points on the webinar. Quite naturally, there could probably be one or two more points which are probably not as important as the points that I've put in the webinar, but these are the 7 or 8 traps that we think you guys could fall into. So please beware of the traps. Now, to consolidate the learning, we probably have a couple of challenger questions, out of which I'll take this one because we are running short of time. I'll give you 2 minutes, 3 minutes because this is a challenger question. Go ahead and solve it. Time starts now. 3 minutes. That's what I'll take your question in the question answer session. Two minutes more. A minute more. All right, that's time. Okay, so if I take some examples of perfect squares, you'll see that I can write 4 as a 2 into 2. You'll see that I can write a 36 as a 2 into 2 into a 3 into 3. You'll see that I can write 100 as 2 into 2 into 5 into 5. So this is the basic property of a perfect square. The property is any perfect square except for one. One is an exception, of course. Any other perfect square will always have a pair of prime factors. So 4 has a pair of 2, 36 has a pair of 2, a pair of 3, 100 has a pair of 2 and a pair of 5. So if you know this property, this problem or this question actually becomes a very easy question. On the other hand, if you do not know this property, then you'll end up trying values and trying to, synthesize the statements based on values. Now, the first statement, when x is divided by 12, the remainder is 6. So the understanding is I can write x as, let's say the quotient is k, I can write x as 12k plus 6. Now if you look at the right hand side, 6 is common. I'll be left with 2k plus 1. Now we know that 2k plus 1 is an odd number. If you look at 6, 6 has a 2 and 6 has a 3. Now, this odd number might give you another 3, but it will never be able to give you another 2. And if it is not able to give you another 2, you will never have a pair of 2's. And if you don't have a pair of 2's, then x will not be the square of an integer. So this is a classic case of no being the answer. So question is x the square of an integer? The answer that you're getting is a definite no. You're saying no, it will never be an integer, right? So if you recognize the fact that no can be an answer, you will mark the answer for this question as A. If you say, oh my God, I got a no, what does this mean? This means that probably I'm wrong. And then move on to the second statement, then that is probably where you're making a mistake. What does the second statement say? When divided by 14, the remainder is 2. So we can frame a similar equation. X is equal to 14k plus 2. X is equal to 7k or 2k, sorry, 2k, 2 into 7k plus 1. I'm sorry with that. Now 7k plus 1 can be an even number, can be an odd number, which means here x may be a square, may not be a square. So we are getting a yes sometimes and we are getting a no sometimes. Therefore, the second statement alone is insufficient. The first statement alone is actually sufficient because it's giving you a definite no as an answer. A is the answer to this question. And if you don't recognize this no as a definite answer, you'll end up marking C or D or E because you have analyzed the question in a faulty way. Right, Bhaskar. Right. Pavitra, Karthik, you were probably the first two people to get the answers for this question. So good one on that. I'm guessing that both of you tried values. Am I right on that? Karthik, Pavitra? Right. So I'm not saying that it's an inferior method, but probably took you a little more time than the analysis way of solving this question. So always keep in mind, analyze to a certain stage and then plug in values. That's a better option than starting to plug values from the start itself. Okay. All right. So I'm afraid we have come to the end of the questions. Although I have a couple more challenger questions, I would like to take the question and answer segment now because otherwise we'll end up extending the session way ahead than we had planned to. So before we move on to the question and answer session, are all of you comfortable typing in your questions in the chat box? Because that is something that I'm comfortable with. If you want, you can type in your questions in chat box. I'll try answering the questions one by one. Please give me some time to answer the question that I'm currently handling, and then I'll come to your question. Okay, Jitin. So this was one challenger question that I wanted to take up. This was on time and work. All right. And you guys can probably take this down and solve it when you have time. You can solve this as an exercise or a homework. So I'll give you all 1 minute to take this down. Yes, can you go ahead? Can I move on to the next question now? Okay, I'm presuming that's a yes. This is the next question that I had for you. All right, so I can take in your questions now. Starting with I want to know the answer for which question? Challenger question 2. Right. The answer is yes. The answer is A. Correct. Okay. I think I'll take up Karthik's question first. So Karthik's question was about the cubic equation. So cubic equation was, if I'm right, x plus 2 into x plus 1 into x equal to 56 into 6. Karthik, you have to understand that 56 into 6 gives me 336. And 336, there is only one way of prime factorizing 336 in terms of integers. So if you prime factorize 336, this will be 3112, 2 and 56, 7 and 8. So 2 4s are 8 and 2 2s are 4. Now there's only one way in which you can express 336 as a product of 3 integers, and remember that these are 3 positive integers. So if you have the hypothesis that two integers can be negative and negative into negative is positive, that is not possible here because we are talking of people. Yeah, so that's a different situation, right? This situation is different from what you are talking of. So if you say there's a generic cubic equation, of course there can be 3 different values of x to be integers. That's fine. But here it's a specific situation, right? Okay. There was another question on the inequalities part, which is I think the question related to one. Sorry guys. 1 by r plus s less than 1 by r plus s. You need to figure out that we finally ended up at the equation which looked like minus s into 1 plus r into r plus s divided by r into r plus s less than 0. So this is what we were trying to find out. Now the question already told me that r is positive. The second statement told me that s is positive. Now if r is positive and s is positive, this will be positive. This is anyways positive. This entire part again is positive. Positive into positive will give me positive. So my denominator is positive. 1 plus positive gives me positive inside the bracket. I have a S which is positive, and then I have a negative sign. So this will end up giving me negative by positive. And to negative by positive is definitely less than 0. I arrived at this conclusion by knowing only S more than 0. I did not combine both the statements. So that is the reason why the answer was not C. I hope that is clear. Shashwat, I think, was the person who asked this question, right? Yes, guys. What are the questions you have for me today? If you want, you can type in your questions in the Q&A box also. I'll be able to answer your question. Okay. So Garima, I've got your question. So I'll be answering this in a more generic way. That if any of you have, had issues with time management, left out certain number of questions at the end, it clearly points out, towards not your concepts not being in place. Only when your concepts are not in place will you find difficulty between choosing, certain answer options as wrong and then pinpointing and saying that this answer is right. You will not be able to differentiate between black and white. There will always be some gray areas. That is when you start having time management problems. So work on your concepts, because leaving out questions, the GMAT adaptive algorithm will take it as a wrong answer. Every question that you leave out will be qualified as a wrong answer, right? And therefore, it will pull down your score. Also understand that consecutive mistakes, if you make 2 consecutive mistakes or 3 consecutive mistakes, the algorithm will not be able to slot you at a certain level, and therefore the only thing that it will do is it will penalize you and bring your score down. So 2 things. One, try not to make consecutive mistakes, which is, I know harder said than done, because you'll not be able to know whether your previous answer was right or wrong. And at least the part that is under your control is try not to leave questions. All right. Always keep a certain, always keep 3 or 4 yardsticks for time management. Like for example, um, at the end of the first 17 minutes, right? You should have solved about 8 questions or 7 questions. At the end of the next 18 minutes, you should have solved about 9 questions. So always keep the 2 minute per question thumb rule in mind. And accordingly break up the 31 questions into approximately 4 quarters. All right. That will help you in time management. You got into the C trap in a lot of cases, Naveen. I understand. I saw a lot of C's from you. No, Naveen. Yeah, I mean that would be a fair starting point, but if you get too much into that ideology, that itself will become a trap. So my suggestion would be to start off with a level-headed mind and try to analyze each statement based on its merit, and try not to get into a C trap all the time. Okay, C should be the last, it should be the last option that you can fall back on. MMJ, what is the best practice or method to get perfect in data sufficiency questions? I wish I could answer that, because I have not seen a lot of people who could claim that they are perfect in data sufficiency. So you have to understand that in data sufficiency, the average accuracy rate expected of you is somewhere in the range of 75% to 80%. So if you're able to achieve that, the material that helps you achieve that is enough for you. So as of now, solving the questions from the official guide and the retired GMAT questions are the material that is sufficient for you to get better at data sufficiency, right? Especially the retired GMAT questions are really very good, questions to improve on your uh, approach of solving data sufficiency questions. Yes, guys. What else? So any other questions, guys? What is the average time for a DS question, Karthik? If you're looking at DS questions from arithmetic questions from topics like percentages, profit loss, simple number problems, then a minute and a half is is the average time. If you're looking at slightly more difficult questions from time, speed, and distance, time and work, permutation combination, certain probability questions, some geometry questions, 2 minutes is the average time, and everything else, the harder questions, inequalities, coordinate geometry, right? Um, that on an average should take between 2 to 3 minutes, nothing more than 3 minutes. If you are extending your approach, your attempt beyond 3 minutes, it means that you are stuck somewhere. The best approach to solving inequality questions is to break down the question stem and try to deconstruct it to a stage where you can either plug in values or you can use some basic concepts of inequalities. Also, in inequality DS problems, try to keep the right hand side 0, try to keep the left hand side as a product or a quotient. This is another tactic that we use. No, Naveen, you're right. DS, can cover the entire spectrum of topics that you have for quant. In fact, data sufficiency questions can be framed on analytical reasoning. Also, they can be framed on logical reasoning. So we have come across data sufficiency questions based on seating arrangements, based on ranking. So, I mean, I don't think there's any topic that can escape DS. Good material for coordinate geometry would be to go through the official guide. Coordinate geometry is not tested extensively. Out of 31 questions, you probably will get about 2 or 3 questions from coordinate geometry. That's about 10%. So good material to start off will be the official guide, then go on to the quant review, then take up the retired GMAT questions. What is the expected score for the IIMs? It depends on the IIMs MMJ. So if you're looking at the top 3, let's say A, B, and C, look nothing below 720. Sometimes the 700 or 710 may make the cut depending on the profile. If you're looking at some of the lower IIMs, something like IMK or the newer IIMs, then probably a 650 to 680 might make the cut depending on your profile. Yes. So, Naveen, to answer your last question, DS will increasingly become, easier as you get the hang of more and more concepts. At this point in time, DS is appearing more difficult than it actually is, because you people are probably just starting off with your preparation on quant. So you probably have not, crossed the numbers chapter. So as you, assimilate more concepts, I think DS will start becoming more, slightly more easier. I don't want to eat my own words, but yes, DS becomes relatively easier when you know all the concepts. A general question, Naveen, FMS does not recruit with the GMAT score, it only takes the CAT score. No, it doesn't take any other score, it only takes the CAT score. Karthik, increasing a 49 from increasing your quant score from a 49 to a 50 is definitely in the realms of practice, but going from a 50 to 51 is a lot of hard work and a little bit of luck, right? You need that luck factor going your way. Uh, uh, in going from a 50 to 51, when you're at the hard level, if you end up making a silly mistake, if you make more than 2 mistakes, you'll end up getting a 50, right? So we have observed that anyone who's got a 51, a lot of people who've got a 51 have ended up making 2 mistakes, right? So if you make a silly mistake in that third question that you got wrong, then that is the difference between a 50 and a 51. But increasing from 49 to 50, it's about solving the hard problems, especially from topics like inequalities, coordinate geometry, probability, numbers, and to some extent permutation, combination, and statistics. That's how you increase your score from 49 to 50. From 50 to 51, again, as I said, there's a little bit of chance factor coming in. Yes, Naveen. So I answered that question now. So you can get 2 questions wrong and still get a 51. Ayushi, most asked topics of quants in GMAT. This is like, school kids and college kids asking me what topics are important. I'm sorry, all topics are important, except in quant for GMAT, topics like arithmetic progression, harmonic progression, geometric progression, logarithms. These are topics that are not tested. Apart from these, practically, I can't say that one topic is the most important. All topics are almost given the same weightage. MMJ, I already discussed that weightage for DS on the GMAT question front. I cannot answer the question of weightage on this total score. Out of 31 questions in quant, approximately 45% to 50% of the questions are on DS. So you can extrapolate it to the score. Karthik, if you have already exhausted the quant review and the retired GMAT questions, then we have a set of advanced questions which we can share with you. This will probably help you in exposing you to those difficult questions that you require to go from a 49 to a 50 or 49 to a 51. You're welcome, MJ. It's my pleasure. Yes, guys. What else? You're welcome, Karthik. You're please welcome to reach out to us. Just write a mail to prep@crackverbal.com. and we'll respond to you. Yes, Sarvana, we can please write a mail to prep@crackbubble.com, Sarvana, and then you can get the set of those advanced questions. But remember that the advanced questions will have to be solved only when you're ultra confident about your basic concepts. Only when you're at the 48, 49 level. Otherwise, you end up demoralizing yourself, right? So use them judiciously. All right, guys. So if there are no other questions, then I think we'll call it a day. Thank you very much. You've all been a wonderful audience. It was a pleasure talking to all of you. It was a pleasure helping out all of you with the queries that you had. Okay, MMJ. It depends. MMJ. It depends on what score you start off. So it depends on your diagnostic score. So I can't pinpoint and say you'll require 2 months to get a 700 plus. Your blood will be on my hands then. Generally, ballpark figure is about 3 to 4 months. So 3 to 4 months. Yes, 3 to 4 months is a ballpark figure. Keep that as a reference and start preparing, regardless of where you are. If you're lower down on the score spectrum, you might require a little more time. If you're closer to 700, you'll probably require lesser time. Not a problem. All right, guys, as I was telling you, thanks a lot for being a wonderful audience. Please stay in touch through the channels that we have. And before all of you log off, we have an exclusive offer. I forgot to mention this. A lot of people logged off already. We have an exclusive offer wherein we are offering a $100 discount on our online comprehensive course. So that's $399 becoming $299. The coupon code is crack GMAT 100. You're free to share this coupon code with any of you. If any of you have enrolled already, any of your friends want to enroll, you're free to share this coupon code. Let them get in touch with us. We'll help them out with the enrollment process. All right. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot again. Have a nice evening, all of you. Was nice talking to all of you. Hope to get in touch with you all again at a later stage in a different webinar. Thank you, guys.